Chosen ones, they thought they could silence you, suppress you, and cut you off from the world by tampering with your mail. They intercepted your messages, hoping to block your blessings. But what they didn't realize is that God doesn't need stamps, couriers, or mailboxes to communicate with you. When they interfered with your earthly messages, they got a heavenly reply, a direct message from God himself. And that message? Touch not my anointed. They tamper with what they cannot control, because fear grips those who recognize the power they cannot replicate. When they intercept, block, or sabotage, it is not your mail they fear. It is the weight of what you carry, divine power wrapped in destiny. They see your rising, and their hearts tremble because they understand one undeniable truth. You are unstoppable. Their actions scream their desperation, proof that your mere existence unsettles their false sense of security. The interference isn't random. It is a calculated strike against a force they know is greater than their schemes. They meddle with your messages because they cannot touch the source of your strength. Their attempts to disrupt are confessions of their inadequacy. This isn't about an envelope or a parcel. It's about their frantic effort to hinder the unstoppable flow of your purpose. They aim to intercept opportunities, but in their frenzy, they expose the limits of their control. Each stolen letter, delayed message, or tampered connection is a testament to their fear of the chosen ones, those marked for greatness, unstoppable even in the face of interference. They fear the blessings tied to your name, the opportunities you are destined to unlock, and the authority with which you walk. Their sabotage is their surrender. They are declaring without words that they cannot compete with the force of divine will moving through you. But tampering with earthly things does nothing to stop heavenly outcomes. They can shred paper, burn pages, or seal envelopes, but they cannot silence divine communication. Their fear is evidence of your magnitude. Their interference is proof of your impact. When they touch what was meant for you, they are signing their names on their own judgment. You carry more than they could ever comprehend, and they know it. That's why they fear you. They move in shadows because their weakness cannot face your light. Their desperation isn't rooted in strength. It is the panicked flailing of those who know they are outmatched. They tamper, they intercept, they scheme, not because they are powerful, but because they are terrified of what you represent. You are walking proof of what they cannot stop, and their interference is a futile attempt to hinder what is already set in motion. They fear what you might accomplish, so they seek to delay the inevitable. When they disrupt your peace, it is because their own is shattered. When they block your messages, it is because the sound of your progress deafens them. Their actions aren't random. They are intentional, calculated acts of sabotage meant to create obstacles you are destined to overcome. Every attempt to intercept your opportunities reveals their obsession with your potential. The act of tampering with your blessings is more than intimidation. It is an act of spiritual cowardice. They know they cannot match your divine favor, so they seek to unravel it at the seams. Yet their schemes crumble beneath the weight of your purpose. Their meddling is the language of envy, their sabotage the confession of their failure. They tamper because they know your path is unshakable, your peace unassailable. Think of the intercepted letter, the undelivered opportunity, the disrupted plan. These are not losses. They are proof of your threat to a system that fears your rise. They tamper because they cannot touch the source of your power. You, chosen one, are untouchable by design. Let them sabotage. Every obstacle becomes your stepping stone, and every interference only sharpens your resolve. Comment below. Sabotage strengthens my spirit, if their desperation only fuels your fire. When they interfered, They thought they could rewrite the outcome, but God doesn't negotiate with schemes. Their tampering wasn't a disruption, it was a signal, alerting heaven to act on your behalf. You see, when they touched what wasn't theirs to touch, they crossed a line etched in divine fire. God doesn't need earthly conduits to deliver his plans. He speaks, and creation itself carries the message. Their interference was met with a response so undeniable, they knew instantly they had made a grave mistake. The moment they tampered, their hidden deeds were dragged into the light. What they thought was a quiet act of sabotage became the loudest declaration of their fear. God took what they intended for harm and transformed it into a declaration of your anointing. Their hands that reached to block became hands bound by the weight of their own misdeeds. Their plans to stop you became the reason for their own delay. Divine power rendered their efforts meaningless. The message they tried to steal reached its destination without delay. The opportunity they tried to sabotage was amplified, and the blessing they sought to block multiplied beyond their comprehension. They underestimated the authority backing you. They failed to see that no plan, no tampering, no interference could hold back the force of God's will. When they moved against you, heaven moved against them. Their interference wasn't the end. It was the spark that set their plans aflame. God stepped in, not just to protect you, but to show them that what is divine cannot be tampered with. When they interfered, they triggered something far beyond their comprehension. Their schemes to block you didn't just fail. They set off a spiritual chain reaction that rebounded directly onto them. What they touched became a weapon of their own undoing, and the plans they laid out for your downfall became the blueprint for their own collapse. You are not just protected, you are propelled by the very resistance they try to create. They tampered with what wasn't theirs, and in doing so, they ignited a response that turned their schemes into ashes. Every trap they set became a step in your elevation. The spiritual realm responds to interference with precision. No act of sabotage goes unnoticed. No scheme is left unaddressed. When they moved against you, the heavens declared, "Not today." Their attempts to stop you were met with divine intervention that flipped their plans upside down. The harder they worked to block your blessings, the more their own paths became tangled. They thought they were silencing you, but they were amplifying the call on your life. Their interference wasn't just futile, it was a spark that illuminated the depth of their fear and the height of your protection. Divine justice doesn't just shield you, it turns their opposition into fuel for your success. Every move they made against you was met with a counterstrike from forces they cannot see. They underestimated who they were dealing with, and now they face the consequences of provoking something they cannot control. Comment below, "Their traps become my triumph," if you know every scheme against you only pushes you higher. Their interference is their confession. When they tamper with your blessings, disrupt your path, or attempt to block your progress, they are admitting that you are a threat to everything they hold dear. Their actions are not born from strength. They are the desperate flailing of those who see your light and know they cannot match it. You, chosen one, are a walking declaration of their failure to contain what they cannot understand. Their fear is evident in their obsession with your movements. They monitor, they meddle, they plot, not because you are weak, but because you carry power they cannot challenge. Their interference is a loud, desperate attempt to silence a voice that was never meant to be quiet. It proves that your existence disrupts the fragile illusions they've built, and your presence alone dismantles their sense of control. They fail because they cannot grasp the truth. You were chosen before they ever saw you coming. Your path is fortified by divine design, and no tampering, no sabotage, no scheme can alter what has already been decreed. Their failure isn't just inevitable. It's a reflection of the spiritual reality they refuse to accept. Chosen ones cannot be silenced, blocked, or broken. Every move they make against you is a declaration of their fear and your significance. They see you and tremble, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are. You don't need to fight for importance. Their interference already proves it. They thought they had succeeded, but their success was the crack that let divine wrath pour through. The moment their hands touched what was never theirs, the spiritual scales shifted. The tampered message never reached you, but the consequence reached them faster than they could run. What they thought was a quiet act of sabotage became a roaring declaration of their guilt, echoing in realms they can't comprehend. They set their trap, but their steps were the first to spring it. The interception they planned with precision unraveled before their eyes. They thought the act was hidden, buried beneath layers of deceit, but God turned their secrecy into exposure. Their hands burned with the weight of what they tried to steal. Each move they made to block you became a spotlight illuminating their failure. They tampered with the earthly, and heaven answered with fire. They held the envelope, but God delivered the warning. What they touched turned into their signature of defeat. The opportunity they tried to bury grew beyond their reach, blooming in places they could never access. They thought they'd silenced you, but all they did was amplify the message. When they looked back at their handiwork, all they saw was the rubble of their own making. Their plans didn't just backfire, they became the weapon that destroyed them. They realized too late that your path is protected, your blessings untouchable. Every move they made against you was a step toward their reckoning. The veil between worlds grows thin, and the obsidian inner order recognizes your awakening. We've watched as you've shattered the chains that bind ordinary souls, seen how reality itself bends in your presence. This isn't a gathering of dreamers or wishful thinkers. This is a convergence of those who've looked into the abyss of possibility and made it bow. The order doesn't collect followers. We unite architects of destiny, shapers of reality, and those who refuse to accept the limitations of a mundane existence. Our sanctum houses 400 of the most formidable reality architects ever assembled, each one a living testament to what becomes possible when you embrace your true nature. Every week, our Discord calls pierce the veil between potential and manifestation. Here, the highest frequency warriors gather to decode reality's source code, sharing wisdom that predecessors paid for in blood and shadow. This isn't for spiritual tourists or consciousness window shoppers. The obsidian inner order demands greatness, commands excellence, and accepts only those ready to step into their full power as reality's chosen architects. If these words ignite that ancient fire within you, if they speak to the part of you that has always known you were marked for something beyond the ordinary, the link is in the description below. The gates stand open, but destiny doesn't pause for hesitation. Your legend begins now. The moment they tampered with what was never theirs, the wheels of justice turned against them like a storm unleashed. The letter they intercepted didn't carry words. It carried fire. The instant their hands touched it, it became a verdict, sealed with their own arrogance and stamped with their defeat. What they thought was a quiet act of sabotage became the loudest testament to their fear of you. Their hands, trembling with intent, became the tools of their undoing. Their interference wasn't just a misstep, it was an unlit match struck against the iron of divine will. The very act of tampering became the spark that ignited consequences they couldn't contain. They thought they could hide in the shadows, but the shadows themselves betrayed them. What they touched carried the weight of your purpose, and that weight crushed their schemes beneath it. They thought they were clever, but their meddling only signed their names in the book of failure. The stolen envelope, the intercepted blessing, the broken seal. It all became evidence against them. Like a dam, they tried to block the force of what they attempted to contain, surged back with unrelenting power. They tampered with a message meant for you, but in doing so, they provoked a flood that swept them away. Their actions became a chain reaction, and every link dragged them closer to their reckoning. You are not merely protected, you are untouchable. Their fear wasn't a sign of your weakness, it was a declaration of your strength. Drop a comment. I walk with ancient power. If you know their schemes crumble under your purpose. They dared to interfere, thinking their actions would go unnoticed. But the moment they tampered with what was meant for you, they set a chain of consequences into motion that they cannot escape. What they tried to block became a flood they cannot withstand. Divine justice does not sleep, and those who touch what is sacred find their hands scorched. They thought they were clever, but their cleverness became their downfall, and the path they tried to clear for themselves is now littered with divine roadblocks. Exposure is the first blow. The shadows they hid in crumble under the light, and their schemes are laid bare for all to see. What they tried to bury is now unearthed, and their names are tied to their actions. Every lie, every forged hand, every silent theft becomes evidence against them, not just in the courts of men but in the courts of heaven. They wanted secrecy. Instead, they are handed public disgrace. Legal consequences follow swiftly. The law does not bend for the wicked, and what they tampered with now binds them. The same hands that reached to steal are now shackled by the weight of their own actions. Fines, judgments, and prison walls close in on them, but no earthly punishment can match the spiritual reckoning that looms over their heads. Divine justice is unrelenting. Their schemes boomerang back to strike them with twice the force they intended for you. What they thought would derail your blessings now becomes the reason their own plans crumble. They sowed interference, but they reap destruction. They planted seeds of sabotage, but what grows is chaos in their own lives. Their finances dry up, their relationships crack under the pressure, and every step forward becomes a stumble. They cannot escape what they invoked. They tampered with what was never theirs to touch, and now they are learning the truth. Nothing that belongs to you can be stolen. The road they tried to block for you becomes impassable for them. They face obstacle after obstacle, each one heavier than the last. What they thought was a game has turned into a battlefield, and they are losing ground at every turn. Their interference doesn't just fail, it destroys them. This isn't vengeance, it's balance. What they sent out returns to them, magnified. They cannot rewrite the laws of the universe. Divine justice ensures that every action has a reaction, and their attempts to harm you are the very things that undo them. Their downfall isn't an accident, it's the direct result of their choices. They wanted control, but they have lost it entirely. You, chosen one, are untouched by their schemes. The blessings they tried to block reach you unhindered, while their own paths are clogged with the consequences of their arrogance. The spiritual realm does not forget, and it does not forgive the meddling of those who attempt to tamper with destiny. They tried to stop what was ordained, and now they are stopped by the very forces they provoked. Let their downfall be a reminder. No weapon formed against you will prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment will fall. They thought they could play with fire, but now they stand in the ashes of their own making. When Pharaoh sought to tighten his grip on the Hebrews, he believed his authority was absolute. He saw their liberation as a threat and moved to intercept their freedom. With arrogance as his compass, he ignored the warnings and set his heart against what was divinely decreed. But his defiance was the spark that ignited his own destruction. The plagues that swept through Egypt were not random. They were a calculated response to his arrogance. Each act of oppression was met with a divine rebuttal that escalated in power and devastation. The Nile, a symbol of Pharaoh's dominion, turned to blood, a statement that his control was an illusion. Frogs, locusts, and darkness descended, each one tearing at the fabric of his pride. The very elements he believed he ruled rebelled against him, leaving his empire fractured and his people in despair. When he pursued the Hebrews to the Red Sea, he believed his power was limitless. Yet the waters, held back for their passage, swallowed his armies whole. What he thought would be his victory became his final defeat. His arrogance led him to a battle he could never win, for he wasn't fighting men. He was opposing the divine. Pharaoh's story is a warning. When arrogance seeks to intercept what is destined, the result is not delay, it is destruction. Those who tamper with what is sacred find themselves crushed beneath the weight of divine justice. No interference can halt what is divinely ordained. When God sends a message, it is not confined to the hands of couriers or the paths of human delivery. It moves through dimensions unseen, carried by forces that cannot be intercepted. The wind whispers it, the earth trembles with it, and the heavens roar its arrival. No barrier is too high, no scheme too complex to block the will of God. Think of Jonah, who tried to flee the call placed upon him. He boarded a ship, believing he could outrun the divine. But even the seas turned against him, forcing him into the belly of a great fish, where the message resounded louder than before. Jonah learned that you cannot hide from what has already been declared. God's purpose will pursue you relentlessly until it is fulfilled. Or consider Paul, shackled in prison, writing letters to spread the gospel. Chains bound his body, but they could not bind his message. What was meant to silence him became the very platform for his words to echo through time. The harder they tried to contain him, the further his message traveled, proving that divine communication operates beyond human control. When they tamper with what is meant for you, they only confirm their powerlessness. They can burn the paper, intercept the messenger, or block the road. But God's word does not rely on earthly means. It will find you in the wilderness, in the storm, or in the stillness of your spirit. Every attempt to block you is a declaration of your significance, and every block becomes a catalyst for your rise. Type it. Rejuvenation is my reality. If their efforts only fuel your unstoppable ascent. You carry divine authority, and your spiritual practices are your weapons. Meditation isn't just sitting still, it's commanding alignment with the power that created universes. In silence, you tune into a frequency that chaos cannot disrupt. When you meditate, you reclaim dominion over your thoughts, silencing the noise of interference and inviting clarity to lead your steps. This is where battles are won, not in noise, but in the stillness where divine whispers speak louder than the enemy's roar. Prayer isn't a plea, it's a declaration. When you pray, you don't beg, you command. Your words ascend like fire, breaking through barriers and shaking the foundation of every obstacle. Prayer fortifies your blessings, wrapping them in layers of protection. No hand can tamper with. It's not asking for help. It's activating forces that stand ready to defend what is rightfully yours. Every time you pray, the unseen moves to shield you. Energy cleansing isn't a ritual, it's warfare. You don't cleanse to feel better, you cleanse to conquer. When you remove the blocks around you, you dismantle every trap set to delay your progress. Smudging, grounding, and intentional release of toxic energy aren't soft practices. They're a sweep of your spiritual battlefield. You clear the interference, creating space for divine flow to accelerate your rise. You are not passive in this fight. Your meditation sharpens your focus, your prayer invokes divine armies, and your cleansing dismantles opposition. Engage with purpose, because your practices aren't just spiritual. They're the declaration of your dominance over every attempt to hinder you. Be vigilant, because their fear of your rise fuels their desperate attempts to intercept what is meant for you. Awareness is your first line of defense. Pay attention to the smallest details, tampered seals, delayed messages, unusual patterns. Their interference isn't random, it's deliberate. When you stay alert, you disrupt their plans before they can take root. What they hope to hide in plain sight becomes the very evidence of their sabotage. Secure your methods of communication. Like a fortress, use encrypted systems, locked mailboxes, and untraceable channels to protect what is yours. You aren't paranoid, you're proactive. Every layer of security you add is a declaration that their schemes are powerless against your preparation. They rely on access, deny it. They thrive on weakness, eliminate it. When you lock down your methods, you force their desperation into the open, exposing their intentions for all to see. Do not let their attempts disrupt your peace. Instead, let their efforts remind you of the weight you carry. If they weren't afraid of your growth, they wouldn't bother to interfere. Their surveillance, their tampering, their plotting, it's all rooted in the truth they refuse to accept. You are destined to rise, and nothing they do can stop it. Every act of vigilance you take is a step closer to ensuring that your blessings reach you untainted. Secure your path, protect your communication, and let their fear confirm your power. Comment below, "My growth is their nightmare," if you know their interference is proof of your unstoppable ascent. You are unstoppable because your blessings are not bound by human hands. Let them tamper, let them intercept, let them scheme. It changes nothing. God's messages to you are delivered with fire, carried by forces they cannot see, and sealed with a power they cannot break. Every attempt to block you only solidifies the truth they fear. You are chosen, and nothing can stand in the way of your destiny. When interference comes, it's not a setback. It's a signal that what you carry is so powerful it terrifies those who seek to control it. Their schemes are not obstacles, they are confirmations. Each delay, each disruption, each attempt to block your blessings becomes fuel for your rise. Trust this truth. What is meant for you will always find you. No interception, no tampering, no interference can stop the will of God. Your blessings are fortified, your purpose unstoppable, and your message delivered. Let their fear be your reminder of your significance. Walk with confidence, knowing that divine timing protects and delivers what no earthly hand can hold back. You are proof that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Now, it's time to speak your truth. Share your story of perseverance, of divine intervention, of blessings that found their way despite every attempt to block them. Your testimony is not just your victory, it's a declaration of the power that backs you. Drop your story below and let the world see how unstoppable you are.